London, and in collaboration with the RAI Film Festival, which is the Royal Anthropological Institute event dedicated to ethnographic and anthropological film. So I'm Caterina Sartori, and I am one of the organizers of the RAI Film Festival. And tonight with me here in virtual space are John Magnusson and Leandro Godinho, who are the directors of the films we just watched over on Facebook, Even Asteroids Are Not Alone, and Positive YouTubers. I can hear a loud noise. Can you too? Okay, that's gone. So welcome, Leandro and John. Are you here with us? Can you say hi?
Yes, hi.
Hi,
Thank
both
you
of
very much
you.
for inviting me.
Hi.
Great.
Inviting us, yeah.
Cool, it's great. It's really great to have you. So just to introduce you really briefly, John is an anthropological filmmaker. He's got a background in journalism and poetry, and he's currently based in Berlin. And Leandro is an award-winning Brazilian filmmaker who's also based in Berlin. And in Berlin, he lectures in screencast film, which is something that I hope that we'll get to come back later and chat more about. So we're going to be together for about half an hour to 40 minutes, but that's flexible. We'll see how we go. And how this works is that you, the audience, we can't see you or hear you, but you're able to type in your questions into the chat box. It's a private chat, so no one will be able to see it apart from a moderator who will then send the questions over to me, and then I'll be able to read them out. So please just start sending your questions, and we'll slowly get to each one of them. So I'll just kick this off before we come to your questions. So John and Leandro, do you just want to tell us a bit about why you decided to make your films and how the idea came to you in the first place? And let's start with John.
Okay, yeah, thanks very much. Yes, how I came about doing the film, it was actually I was studying visual and media anthropology at Freie Universität here in Berlin, and we were doing a course in digital anthropology. And I had known this game, EVE Online, for quite a while. I had played it a little bit many years earlier. And I had always been fascinated about the kind of communal aspect of it. And so I guess I felt there was an opportunity there while we were in this taking this digital anthropology course to actually dig a little bit deeper and try to make some sort of a piece about that. And that's when I decided to make a kind of this short film there. Yes, that's like the short answer.
Okay, let me just add that the film also won the short film prize at the RAI Film Festival in 2019. So that's just something I wanted to mention. So let's go over to Leandro, whose film was actually part of a program at the film festival, which was called Queer Brazil, which was a program of shorts about queerness in Brazil. So Leandro, tell us about your film.
I did a short film, Positive YouTubers, in 2016 as a final semester project within this digital anthropology course in this master in visual and media anthropology that me and John were part of. We were in the same class. And last year, I got invited to lecture machinima and screencast films within this MA program here in Germany at the HMKW University. So when we were students, we were supposed to do this, to do a machinima movie at the end of the digital anthropology semester. And I was looking for a good subject to research. And I found these Brazilian YouTubers talking about their lives with HIV on the internet. And I thought this would be an interesting subject to research about. So I started watching many YouTube videos from those digital activists. And I realized there was enough material to conduct research on digital activism through those HIV positive YouTubers. And I got in contact with many of them, including international YouTubers. And I found two women living with HIV who also had YouTube channels, one in the US and another one in Brazil. But after deeper research, watching their videos, I realized it would be better to focus my research in a specific group, which is only Brazilian gay men living with HIV. And the reason why I decided that was gay men has been the most affected population since the 80s. And even though everybody can get HIV, gay and straight men or women, cis or trans, the social stigma follows mostly and massively upon gay men. And we all know AIDS was called for many years the gay cancer. And until today, when straight people get HIV, they are seen as victims. And when gay people get HIV, they are seen as promiscuous. And this is a social issue, much more than a medical issue. I didn't want to conduct my research on public health. I wanted to talk about social stigma and why, after more than 35 years, HIV and AIDS are still a taboo in our society. And my most important goal as a researcher was to show how young people are using the internet and social media to stop HIV stigma, showing what was behind their decisions of exposing themselves online, and raising a debate on conventional activism versus digital activism.
Great, thanks, Leandro. That's all really interesting. We have the first questions coming in. Okay, so there's one for Leandro, really. Actually, comes up twice from Jules. He says, thanks for the great films. I'm interested in the definition of machinima. Actually, I'd like to know how to pronounce it because I'm not quite sure how to say it. But let me read the whole question. I'm interested in the definition that is used in positive YouTubers because I've always heard the term being used for films like Even Asteroids, i.e. films that utilizing screening recordings of computer gamers.
Yeah. So I say machinima. Machinima is the junction of the terms machine and cinema. And some authors call it screencast films or desktop films, or even stream movies or screen life movies. So I prefer to use the term screencast films because the meaning of this aesthetic is to make movies taking place on a screen. And it can be a computer screen, a cell phone screen, a tablet screen, and so on. And at the beginning of screencast history in the 80s and 2000, the movies were very close to Yon's movie that we've watched because they were born as a fan-based videos of gamers playing video game. So you can find plenty of documentary and fiction machinimas or even experimental movies made in the worlds of Second Life and GTA 4, which some people don't consider a game, but a virtual world. And there's a very famous screencast feature film called The Trash Master, made by a French filmmaker who spent 2 years of his life making this feature film alone with GTA 4. And the outcome is impressive. You can find this film online. So yeah, mostly machinimas, the term machinima is used more to these films related to games and video games and gamers and so on at the beginning. But now we have like these screencast films, and screencast films are not movies made with a cell phone camera. We don't use a camera to make this type of movies. We record the footage material directly from the device screen. And it's quite easy to do that. You only need like a software like QuickTime player, and then you find the option to record the screen. There are plenty of tutorials on how to record the screen in different devices. On the iPhone, it's quite easy to do that. So, and after capturing the images, you need a conventional editing program like Premiere, Final Cut, and that's it. So there's no need for a crew or even equipment. You can do it alone at home during the quarantine. And now with all these audiovisual productions being stopped or postponed, and also predicting we'll face a huge global economic crisis, I think this aesthetic will become more and more popular in the following months.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess that's exactly one of the reasons why we wanted to put on this screening tonight, because it's topical in so many ways right now. And just to jump on the technical side of things, we have a question from Olivia, and she's interested in how you both captured sound. And maybe Jon can jump on this one.
Yes. Yeah, pretty much how I did it was, I mean, I did the interviews mostly either through the game itself. There is a voice chat inside the game, but I think actually most of it was through Skype, and I did record the sound through QuickTime, through recording the sound through that. I also use in the film. There's music in the film, and that's music from the game itself that I used there. But yeah, mainly I just recorded the interviews through QuickTime, and I didn't really need to change that much because it already had this kind of, I don't know, space feeling to it. I feel like this internet voices, it fitted very well with the whole aesthetics of the visual world.
Yeah, it certainly does. It certainly does. There's a question actually from Harry, who asks, when you use screen recordings of games, and I guess that includes the music as well that you just mentioned, how does this work with rights? Does it count as your own footage or the game's footage?
This is the thing, and I had, because I started this as a school project, I didn't even think about, actually, it's my first ever film project. Been working as a journalist before this, and then I went to this program, and this was a school project. But after I kind of realized that I would be maybe taking it around, and it's been going to quite some festivals and stuff, I actually thought, oh yeah, this is a little bit of a dilemma here. What should what rights do I have? But it's an Icelandic game at the core, so I knew some people there, and I just kind of asked around, and they were very, just nice about it, and they just kind of gave me the rights. So, but I think you could end up in a little bit of a dilemma there, definitely. So I really don't know exactly how that would end, but yeah, I got this kind of nice friendly license from the people there in the end. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, so we've got other questions rolling in. Let me just find one that can follow on. Okay, so Adam asks, how has the significance of these films changed since the outbreak of COVID-19?
Oh, wow.
Are these the films? Are these the kind of films we're going to be watching for the next couple of years?
Yes, I think, yeah, because it's the only way to make a movie during a quarantine. And we don't know how long this quarantine will last. So, and of course, those who are tied to traditional cinema will hate it. And I know lots of people who don't believe this is proper cinema. But, well, I think some people will need to adapt quite fast to this new world. Otherwise, they will get stuck in the old formats.
And there's another question from someone called Asgir. I don't know how exactly to pronounce their name, but they ask, do you have ideas for other desktop docs in the age of Corona? So is there anything else in the pipeline for you guys? Maybe Jon, do you want to?
Well, I'm just finalizing a film at the moment, and that's not a desktop. That's a film that I was actually out and about with the camera, etc. But at the moment, I'm kind of looking around because I'm really craving to. I want to start to do something now. So I'm looking around. I'm looking for ideas to actually do something along the lines. I don't have anything specific yet, but I'm definitely starting to think about next options during the quarantine and what's possible to do. But I think yeah, I mean, it's tricky now when pretty much everything we see and do is these kind of internet conversations, and it's also going to be tricky to maybe find more original ways to work with this
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure that lots of people who are listening, who are students and might be needing to prepare their end of year project this summer, might be, listening with a lot of attention and curiosity to find ways to make something, in time for their.
This is an amazing time for machinima movies, because 4 years ago, when I was a master's student and did my machinima as part of this course, screencast films were not part of the mainstream audiovisual industry yet. Those films had a very underground and experimental approach with no commercial intentions. But in the past few years, many screencast films got selected for major film festivals like Sundance, Toronto, and Berlinale. And now in 2020, it's clear that screencast films are already part of the audiovisual industry. There is a very intriguing series on Netflix called Don't Fuck with Cats, which is a mixing of conventional cinema and screencast aesthetic. And when Netflix and other major production companies put their attention on something that to make money, it becomes popular and there's no way back. And I've seen a lot of contests after coronavirus looking for scripts about self-isolation in the last weeks. BBC launched a contest like this a few weeks ago, asking for narratives about self-isolation and characters connecting via online video conferencing. But this BBC contest was open only to UK citizens. I had plenty of ideas to send to them, but I couldn't. But yeah, many people will start this new way of doing and finding new ways of cinema.
Indeed. So I've got a question from Jon, from Anonymous, and they say, we were wondering how you managed to reach out to the players of Eve, and how did you have them reveal such intimate parts of their lives, which I guess just connects to the idea that, to get that really good footage, you usually rely on a personal connection that you develop in the flesh. So Jon, how did you manage it online?
Yeah, it's a nice question. Thanks. And kind of like maybe, so I mean, for me also, I mean, my master's program in visual anthropology, I was coming new to anthropology also, because I studied creative writing. I'd been working as a journalist. So for me, this was also like, it was the first year in school and in this program. And for me, I also wanted to practice fieldwork and do it a bit properly and actually take it seriously. And like, how would I go about it? So I actually really took it seriously in that sense, that I found my old character in the game that I still had, and the name of that character is Diogenes, which is the only character that you actually see in the middle of the film. And I kind of restarted playing with that old character and went back into the game. The first thing I tried to do was try to find my old friends there, but all of them were gone. So so I had to do something else, and so I started to apply for corporations. There are many corporations in the game, and I introduced myself as a student of visual anthropology, and that I had this idea that I was working on. And I also sent some messages on Facebook, on EVE Online pages there. And so at some point, quite soon, I got into one of these corporations and I started to play with them. And yeah, so I guess I played even for nearly a month before conducting much interviews. And then then, you know, we started to go more into that. And I actually like that very much, because then, you know, we had played before we actually kind of went straight into those interviews. But I also think what surprised me is that I felt like people were many people were quite intimate quite soon when we had these discussions. And I also think what helped there is that I had no intention of showing them their real faces or their real names. So I do think that helps a lot too, in this sense that we met as these avatars in the game. I was the Diogenes, of course. I told them who I was in reality, but they did not know that person, and we never actually saw each other as here. We met as characters in the game, and I do think that helped quite in some ways in such a kind of a research that went through such a short time span, in the sense. So I played for a month, and then I conducted the interviews for another month after that, or something like this. Yeah.
That's a very classically anthropological method anyway that you used, even if it wasn't, you know, in real life. Someone's asking again for you, Jon, did you get the sense that other games would not have the same community?
To tell you the truth, I don't know in great detail, like, you know, all the games that are around. I do know EVE Online because of, you know, how I played it a little bit when I was younger. But also for me, I actually, even though it's about this game, I also feel, and I wanted to make the film not specifically about the game per se. I'm not really telling you what's going on in the game. I'm showing you the community, you know, how we make friends wherever that is, and that's in this space. So I actually think that you could go into, you know, pretty much very different online worlds, and that's kind of my theory, and you could find these similar things there, you know. So it was not specifically, of course, games are different. Some online games are very much focused on constant battles and maybe less communication. This game has that space for that, and there's a lot of communication going on, so it differs definitely between games. But for me also, I think what I also wanted to portray is that, yeah, it's not only EVE Online, it's the virtual world. It's how we communicate there, and how we can actually make friends and lovers, or you know, save lives or whatever in those worlds.
Thank you, Jon. I have a question that's come in for Leandro from Rachel. And she asks, can you elaborate on the aspect of the collective as an aspect of being transgressive? So I guess she's asking, how is the collective transgressive? Leandro?
Okay, here. I was sorry.
Oh yeah, no worries. I thought we might have lost you.
Well, sorry, what her mean, like the collective transgressive?
I don't know. Can you elaborate on the aspect of the collective as an aspect of being transgressive? I guess she's wondering
of the guys like doing this project on YouTube.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
I think they use social media to because they believe digital activism is important. As Jon said, those people believe, and I also believe, that they can save lives online, even if they are distant. And I think this is a great purpose to do that, and create a YouTube channel to talk about their personal lives, but they are also talking about hundreds of thousands of people in Brazil and also around the world that have the same problems, like that live with HIV, and some people like commit suicide because of that, because they are too young and they have nobody to talk about it. And even with the doctors, sometimes the taboo is very like, even with the doctors, it's hard to have a conversation, like a real conversation about that. So they believe the social media like Facebook, Instagram, and also having their channels on YouTube, they can save lives and talking more about something that nobody wants to talk about. That's why I believe they are transgressive in a way, because they are doing what nobody wants to do. Even in the LGBT community, people don't want to talk about this subject.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting that the two films in positive YouTubers, people, it's very important for them to be visible and to put their face out there on the internet, whereas in asteroids, it's exactly that anonymity that allows them to be to reveal more about themselves. It's very, very different modes of being online. I've got a few other questions coming up. Leandro, you've mentioned a few, but Ira is asking, what are classic digital ethnography films which you find inspiring? And I guess digital ethnography or screencast films as a category. Do you have any other ones that you'd like to mention, or Jon, do you have any that we can advise people to watch?
Well, machinima and screencast films are quite a new aesthetic,
yeah.
And also digital anthropology is something new. And but I have like this movie, The Trash Master is a very good machinima movie. And there is also another one who went, which was in Sundance Film Festival a few years ago, called Searching. It's a fiction film, and there is a short film called Noah, which is on YouTube as well. It's very good.
Nova, as in N-O-V-A?
N-O-A-H. Noah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna write up these references at the end and send them out to everyone.
Yeah, great. This film went to Toronto Film Festival a few years ago. And also another one called Profile, which was at Berlinale a few years ago.
Okay.
And it's only a Skype conversation. It's a feature film, but it's very good as well. There are plenty of movies like these machinima movies. There is a very important artist in Australia called Georgie Rotsby-Smith, and she does a lot of machinima movies about gender issues. She's great, and she's like always like questioning the role of women in those type of games, as the Second Life and GTA 4, and also these games that it's mostly men playing these games. That's why she's questioning the role of gender there.
Yeah, wonderful. We're gonna look all those up and make a note of them and send them out. Okay, I've got another question that's come in. Okay, so Sam asks, Jon's film was like a sci-fi movie, and Leandro's was more focused on social media. So how does the content of your film relate to how you edit? I guess, how does the form and the content relate in your films?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for me, it was a kind of a decision that I kind of I wanted you to dwell in that. I wanted the viewer to dwell in that world where the players are moving around. I wanted you to see the landscapes that are traveling through, and actually wanted to minimize, because what I've seen when I've seen films or videos from computer games, I often feel they can be quite complicated for those who don't understand. There can be all kinds of little things that the players know how to work. There's these numbers here, there's this, all kinds of things that the players know, and it can be quite distracting for someone who doesn't really understand what it's all about. So I really wanted to minimize all that and just leave the space there for the viewer to see, to kind of ease into this world, to get this sneak peek. And and I felt that played very well with this kind of mixing the voices and finding the patterns, this kind of same patterns that came through these interviews of these 14 players that I talked to actually yeah, mix this together somehow, this landscape of this world with the voices of the players, and try to make it more contemplative and less action wise. You know, there are, of course, there are fights in the game, there are big battles, you know, there are spaceships exploding, but I really wanted to take it down into this kind of everyday life of the game itself, of a very kind of mundane little things, to take it to the ground, if you could say so.
Yeah, it's very, I think it's very meditative in the sound, in the images, in the pacing. It definitely takes you into a kind of spacey mode, as opposed to Leandro's film, which on the opposite is very fast-paced, plays with collage a lot. Leandro, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, it's quite different, and I love the editing of John's movie, because we have this feeling of being in suspension with the characters. This is amazing. But in my film, I had an issue because there is already a nice aesthetic of YouTubers, and they are very like young people, and they talk, and they are very communicative, and they talk a lot, and they also, the cuts are very like, it's like jump cuts. There's no pause. Yeah. They are never in silence. So when they edit their movies, it's like very exciting way. So I try to use this, even if I don't like that much, I try to use this in my movie, because it's a new language. It's the way YouTubers are using to communicate themselves on their YouTube channel. Yeah. So I try to follow this pace, which is very fast, but still it's the way they use it.
Well, it definitely reflects that sense of being online and being bombarded by information. Yeah. And it's interesting watching it on a laptop, which I guess most of us are doing, or on a phone rather than in a cinema, is that there's all these sounds that you associate with your own computer anyway. So I kept kind of going, oh my God, something pinged. What is it? No, yeah. So there is a sense that it confuses you in a way that, yeah, the web kind of can do with the overload of information.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just scrolling through the list of questions. So a few people have asked about visual anthropology and how these films can allow us to research new types of topics and questions. Do you have any thoughts on that? Can we do something with the films that we couldn't do in any other way?
What can we do something with?
Can this way of doing anthropology and filmmaking, does that allow us to explore new topics, or what topics does it allow us to look at that we might not have before? I might have confused the question more than necessary.
Yeah, but this is a question that I heard from my students, and I really like, because this semester, at the end of the semester, they had like quite interesting ideas to do their machinimas. One person is talking about the hashtag #MeToo, which is amazing, to a machinima project. And there are people talking about how to teach elderly people to use WhatsApp. And I think now with coronavirus, this is more important than ever, because those who didn't know how to use this, they are like struggling to find a way to use, because this is the new way of communication. Otherwise you won't see anybody in your life. You need to know how to use the WhatsApp or video conference. So there are a lot of new subjects and themes that I think only a screencast film can talk about in a proper way, you know, the best ways to do a machinima film. I think it's gonna be a very impressive new way of communication and visual anthropology.
Maybe just I would like to add to that. I do think it's a very good it's a very good thing to at least in my experience. I mean, as I said, this is the first film project that I do, and an anthropological research, and as a kind of a first project, as a practice to kind of to focus on your desktop and to work with what you have there to start with, you know, and that actually simplifies a lot of things, just to kind of try to make you know, some piece of work from there. I think it's a very good project to do in the beginning of as we did in the visual anthropology course, to actually be thrown into that. And for me, you know, I not having to learn how to use all the complicated equipment, cameras and microphones, but just like, okay, I will have to try to use my own laptop and start there. Yeah, simplifies things, but it's also, of course, it's tricky to make sense of it and make something nice. But it helps to make things a bit more focused on what you have in front of you, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes restrictions help us.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we are spending most of our lives in front of a screen now, and the only way to see our friends and family now is through a screen, and this is already part of our daily routine. So it's obvious that many narratives will arise taking place on computers and cell phones, because art is supposed to reflect our reality, and this is our new reality. So yeah, so we are going to see a lot of movies like that, and there are plenty of subjects and themes to talk about in this way.
Totally
Thank you.
agree.
Did you want to add something, Jon?
No,
you just jumped in.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm sure we will see more and more of these films in the months and years to come. And so thank you very much for having been with us tonight, and thank you to the audience for listening and watching. And have a nice evening.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.